Yeah, well, friends, welcome back to the final and valedictory session of this very important 2 weeks workshop that we have organized. This theme, this valedictory session is focused on the theme on women in diplomacy, perspectives from India and Republic of Korea. And as you have all seen in the past 2 weeks, we've been a part of some very interesting and interactive sessions. And once again, we are amidst you to discuss this very important theme focused on women in diplomacy and the critical issues and challenges faced by women diplomats in both India and Republic of Korea, and I'm sure world over. To discuss this very emotive theme, we have a very distinguished panel from India and Republic of Korea with us today in this session. We have with us Ambassador Hyeon Kim, who's the Ambassador for Climate Change at Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Korea. We also have with us Ms. Myeon Lee, who is the Director General of Economic Diplomacy, MOFA. From India, we have Ambassador Ruchi Ghancham, who is the former High Commissioner of India to the United Kingdom, South Africa, and Ghana. And our own ambassador, Her Excellency Shri Ranganathan, Ambassador of India to Republic of Korea, joining us for this very interesting session. And to moderate the session, we have Dr. Kunjin Song, who is the chair at the Innovative Energy Economy Forum. So without much ado, without wasting any time, I request Dr. Song to preside over the session and carry forward the proceedings. Over to you, Dr. Song.
Hi, thank you for your kind introduction, Dr. Sonal Trivedi. Good afternoon and good morning, friends and colleagues. Great to have you all via Zoom. Well, let me start by introducing a stellar lineup of speakers we have today who are just the right persons to give some food for thought on the topic, women in diplomacy. Let me welcome Ambassador Ruchi Ghanachayam joining us from India. Ambassador Ghanachayam served the country as a career diplomat after she joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1982. She served as High Commissioner of India to the UK, South Africa, and also to Ghana. As you know, in the Commonwealth system, a High Commissioner is an ambassador. Ambassador Ghanachayam also served as Secretary for the Europe West Division in the Ministry of External Affairs of India. And we have Ambassador Hyeon Kim, serving as Ambassador and Deputy Minister for Climate Change in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. As Korea's chief climate negotiator, Ambassador Kim has the Korean delegation to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, bilateral and multilateral climate and green growth negotiations. She also served as Deputy Director General of the Global Green Growth Institute, an outcome of a Korean initiative a decade ago. Korea then positioned itself as a bridge between, developed and developing emerging countries, and the GGGI was created on that foundation, to support developing countries and emerging countries' economic development, as well as environmental sustainability. And Deputy Minister Kim served as the Korean ambassador to Senegal and 5 neighboring countries. Next, we have Ambassador Myeon Lee, a career diplomat as well since 1993, is currently serving as Director General for Bilateral Economic Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Director General Lee was Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of the Korean Mission for UN and WTO. She also served in the Korean embassies in Vietnam, China, and Laos. Her previous assignments include spokesperson for foreign correspondents at the Office of the President. She is a recipient of the Prime Minister's citation. I'm pleased to introduce Ambassador Shri Ranganathan, Ambassador of India to Korea. She initiated, together with Dr. Sonu Trivedi, this academic workshop on facets of the India ROK partnership last year. And this year added this valedictory session on women in diplomacy. You know, this alone shows how genuinely interested she is in strengthening the Korea-India India-Korea bilateral partnership, as well as the women's cause, women's leadership and empowerment. And I thank you for that. Ambassador Ranganathan, also a career diplomat since 1994, was previously posted in the Indian embassies in Hong Kong and Myanmar. She has served in various capacities in the Ministry of External Affairs, as well as in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. She's been serving as the Indian ambassador to Korea since 2018. Okay, with this introduction, and without much further ado, let me ask this question to all panelists. You know, as the topic indicates, why do we need women in diplomacy? Do we ever need to bother at all? You know, if you can speak just from your own experience, it will be more appealing, I think. Can I start by inviting Ambassador Ganashayam first?
Thank you so much, Dr. Song. It is such a pleasure to be with all of you today. I want to especially thank Ambassador Shri Ranganathan, whom I've known for that the years don't show on her at all. It's wonderful to see you all, and it's such a privilege to be with this eminent panel. So, coming to the question that that you have asked, it is a natural question because traditionally diplomacy has been seen as a male domain. In the olden days, I think it was perhaps because diplomats were envoys to kings, including during wars, and often it would be a non-family delegation. So women were not considered perhaps that suitable, appropriate. Women's role in society was also different. But times have changed. The women are more and more a part of every domain of work. They are breaking new glass ceilings all the time. There's hardly any field that women have not conquered, whether it's flying planes or fighting wars or climbing the tallest of mountains, or for example, journeying into space. So women are in every field, and therefore I don't think that any arena can be considered as a reserved for any specific gender. Specifically coming to what women bring to the table, I think most of all, women bring a lot of empathy to diplomacy, and women have a very strong motherly instinct. And in recent years in India, we saw it in our late foreign minister, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, who really changed the orientation of India's approach to handling its foreign policy vis-a-vis Indian people abroad. She made the foreign ministry much more people-centric. In fact, she coined a slogan that was like a mantra to every mission, because it said to our people abroad, your friend abroad is an Indian embassy in that country. So, in your friend in your times of need abroad is the Indian embassy. So this is how I think women actually can make a big contribution to the work of the foreign policy by bringing new perspectives. During the pandemic, I think all of us discovered new facets of our work. And for me, particularly, I found that when lockdown happened in the UK, being a woman, I was perhaps able to think of many more things that people were in need of than if I had not been a woman, for instance. Women are also creative. They bring out-of-box thinking. Women have to learn to manage. For example, they manage multiple roles, running a house, working in the office, etc. So that makes them better time managers, I think. Women also do not prefer conflict and war. it's their spouses and children that go to war. So they work for peace, and they work creatively for peace. And most of all, I think women bring diversity of perspective. Uh, any single gender setup cannot have that inclusiveness. So I think all in all, women bring a lot to the table. Thank you.
Okay, can I now invite Ambassador Hyun Kim?
Thank you, Dr. Song. And first of all, let me congratulate the Indian ambassadors, Shri Ranganathan, for organizing this wonderful session. And I'm very pleased to be a part of this very important discussion. Why do we need women in diplomacy? My long years question about diplomacy is, okay, what is diplomacy? And my answer is, diplomacy is a work to create bilateral, plurilateral, and multilateral mechanism for people, peace, prosperity, and planet. So for peace, people, peace, prosperity, and planet, diplomats are working together. We are creating bilateral, multilateral orders. In that sense, woman is half of humankind, and their voices must be listened. Their voice must be integrated in all bilateral and multilateral discussions and mechanisms. In that sense, I believe diplomacy for all, that's what we should achieve. And in that sense, there is no division between diplomacy by men, or diplomacy by woman, or diplomacy for any single gender. Therefore, I think these days, the gender issue, particularly the woman's right, woman's voice, are an integral part of all diplomatic discussions. And more young, more and more women, they join the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in every countries. And I think women is a mainstream part of diplomacy, and also their voices are fully being integrated in all decision-making and consultations. Yeah, but of course, still situation is different country by country. Therefore, we have to make further global efforts to achieve the goal that women's voice to be fully integrated and reflected in all diplomatic discussions. Thank you.
Very good, Ambassador Kim. So you emphasize the 4P, people, peace, prosperity, and planet. And the diplomacy should be diplomacy for all. And gender mainstreaming in diplomacy is also taking place. We will take that up in depth in the next question. In the meantime, can I invite Ambassador Lee to share her experience and her thought about the women in diplomacy issue? Ambassador Lee?
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar seminar. It's a very challenging issues, but also very timely, because I was just reading this week's cover of The Economist, which says why nations that fail women fail, and it was very inspiring for me, because it also talks about the women's participations and women's important role in diplomacy and in the peace talks. It specifically says that policymakers should study geopolitics through the prism of sex. Peace talks should include women. Peace tends to last longer when women are at the table. And it is such a ringing message that we really need to listen. My portfolio is actually economy. So I'm more I have been watching and looking at how the economic empowerment to women actually helps nation building and development. And it is also very interesting to learn that Prime Minister Modi also said that India should have a women-led development. And also, I heard that Mr. Swami Vivekananda, who actually takes after the Indian Cultural Center, said that the idea of perfect womanhood is perfect independence. Here, I would like to say perfect independence is financial independence. When women have economic empowerment, actually women can help the nation building. And in that sense, I have been working in the WTO on how to help women in their economic and trade policies. And in the WTO, there was signatures of around 120 members on helping and making policymakers more tailored to the women's in terms of their trade policies and economic development, and also the economic assistance programs. So I think these kinds of programs should be in all the agendas for the bilateral negotiations or plurilateral or multilateral organizations. And also yesterday there was 2+2 ministerial meetings with Australia and Canada. And in that statement, we also had one message that says that we will share information, best practices on our policies on economic empowerment, and also how we can support women in STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and math, and also share information on how to help developing countries in promoting their women's economic assistance programs. So there are all kinds of areas where we can help women, not only in our countries, but also in other countries through diplomatic tools that we can have. And I want to also emphasize that still in Korea, we have less women in diplomacies, but I think the trend is increasing, and I think we'll see more higher level officials in diplomatic career among career diplomats, including Ambassador Kim.
I do hope so as well. It's a very interesting point. Perfect womanhood means perfect independence. So have we achieved, by that yardstick, have we achieved perfect independence yet? Well, let me invite Ambassador Ranganathan to share her thoughts about this.
Good afternoon, and it's such a pleasure to be sharing the screen with good friends and with such experienced colleagues. So thank you so much, first of all, for accepting our invitation and sharing your thoughts and your insights. And a special thanks to Dr. Song, who has agreed to moderate this session for us. I'm not very sure whether you want me to answer the question on why do we need women in diplomacy, or you want me to answer the question on whether perfect independence means perfect empowerment. So which is it that you want me to respond to? First of all, let me ask that.
Well, whichever is more appealing to you.
Okay, let me not go down the path of perfection, because I think that is an eternal quest. Let me instead kind of do a wrap up on the various elements which the others who went before me have mentioned in terms of what is the value that women bring to diplomacy. And I think I completely agree with everything that has been said, because there are various elements that have come in over there. But I would just like to bring in, really sharpen the focus on two aspects that I think are really the strengths which women have more than others. One of this is the capacity to forge a kind of consensus. I think we are consensus builders at the core of it. And I have found over my 25 years in diplomacy, and I'm sure the others in the room have had similar experiences, that it is typical for a woman diplomat and a woman negotiator to try and reach across the table and try and come up with an outcome which leaves both sides with something to take away. It is rarely kind of a winner take it all mentality. It is more mentality of let me get something which is good for me and let me leave something which is good for the other side. And I think this is a skill which I see in a great measure in many of the women diplomats that I have seen. It's possible that many male diplomats also have this trait, but I think it is more powerful in the women. The other aspect, and this is something which I believe is, there's a beautiful word which is there in the Korean language which describes this perfectly. And please forgive me, my Korean friends, if the pronunciation is wrong, but this is the concept of nunchi, which is, as I understand it, the capacity to read the room and to kind of get the undercurrents of what is going on. And I think women really pick this up very well, and that is what is an amazing skill which allows us to contribute, to deliver. And as many of our other fellow panelists have said, we bring diversity to the table. We bring more of a focus on development, more of a focus on positive, foreign policy agenda, as opposed to to what we would consider to be the staid, bread and butter aspects of diplomacy that have always been forefront and foremost in the past.
Well, I'm quite impressed. You know this word nunchi. I think in diplomacy, nunchi is an essential quality because nunchi, in my interpretation, nunchi means sensitivities, and it's the ability to read between the lines, which is essential in diplomacy. Well, Ambassador Kim said diplomacy is meant for peace. And she also said gender mainstreaming is taking place, not just in Korea, in India, but globally. So then, is it an equitable world for women diplomats yet? Is there a glass ceiling still, do you recognize? In the case of the Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs, women diplomats take more than half of new entrants. And then the trend has been, has been consistent for the past 10 over years, if I'm not mistaken. And yet, we still see a small handful of women ambassadors and director generals. Why is it so? Will the trend likely continue, in your view? Will it ever change? The change is so slow as a society as a whole. I think we are foot dragging. And will we ever achieve a gender parity in the ambassador level, director general level, and above? Can I ask your view, Ambassador Kim, and then Ambassador Lee?
Very good question. Thank you, Dr. Song. I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1992. 29 years ago. When I joined the ministry, at that time, really, there was very handful of women diplomats. So we were really a minority in the ministry. And very male-dominant culture existed in the ministry. It was, yes, it's true. I felt like there was a glass ceiling in this organization. And also the general perception in the ministry regarding women was, okay, maybe women diplomat will be appropriate for cultural affairs or the multilateral negotiations, not very tough security issues or strategic thinking. Yes, there was that kind of perception. However, it is changing. It has changed a lot. Particularly, I pick two important international conferences. Number one was Beijing World Conference on Women in 1995. And second one is Beijing +5. It is so-called Beijing +5. It was United Nations special session on women in the year of 2000. Those two international conferences actually have influenced Korea a lot. And one of many recommendations of the conferences was to create the full power cabinet minister who is exclusively in charge of gender equality. Therefore, actually, it pushed the Korean society a lot to create a full power cabinet member position regarding gender equality. And finally, in the year of 2001, the Ministry of Gender Equality was created. During that process, actually, there were lots of questions regarding gender equality, women empowerment, girls' rights and empowerment in Korean society. And it brought about huge change in perception, in behavior, in culture of this country, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Therefore, from 2000, 2001, I see many young junior women diplomats join the ministry. The number has increased like significantly. And also they have pretty different perception regarding their career and their family, personal life. Because in my generation, at least, in case man and woman, in case husband and wife, both of them have jobs, but if they should make a decision for anyone to sacrifice the career, it was woman, without question. Because in Asian culture, particularly, everybody assumed that, okay, the wife must sacrifice her career if they have to make a decision for family's happiness. However, the young generation in the foreign ministry now, I see quite different views and behaviors. They talk, husband and wife, they talk each other, and then they compromise, and they make a decision. And I see many cases that actually husband is supporting wife. This big change of culture is becoming a great encouragement for many girls to imagine her career, her future, her professional life in the future. So yes, still I cannot say completely that we have on the level playing field. However, it is also very clear that the changing is taking place and the speed is very, very fast. And the perception, people's perception and culture are changing as well. Therefore, if I just pick up the point regarding women ambassadors or women director generals in Korean Foreign Ministry, I'm sure that pretty soon, Dr. Song, you are going to see many women ambassadors and women director generals, because at mid-manager level, at director or deputy director general level in this organization, we have many candidates. And also they have quite different views regarding their career and their family matters, unlike me, if I just confess. Therefore, you are going to see many women ambassadors and women director generals, women diplomats in high position pretty soon, within, I think, 2-3 years. Yeah, I must stop here. Thank you.
Will I see you becoming the foreign minister soon?
You give me a great encouragement. Korea, we produced woman foreign minister.
Yeah, of course. I'm asking you if you are going to be one soon.
If I will be given that honor, it's going to be my great honor and pleasure. However, I would like to say that there are many other candidates as well, including Dijili.
Of course. Okay. Oh, well, yeah, you said Beijing Women Conference and Beijing +5. Via that those two conferences, Korea could make a lot of change. But I think the top leadership's commitment is very important. Without the top leadership, national leadership's commitment and determination, the UN, commitments, decisions will not take much effect. With that, can I hear from Ambassador Lee?
Thank you. Maybe I will add some more concrete numbers and statistics to make it more understandable on where we are right now. I think the women diplomats are one of the hardest jobs here in Korea because from the traditional perceptions, as Ambassador Kim said, it demands sacrifice from your family and your husband. And it is always the top number one concerns when young junior women diplomats enter the foreign ministry. And that was that doesn't change at all, even today. But when I joined in 1993, I was the only female diplomat among my careers. I was the 10th women who passed the exam, but and also the first ambassador to Finland was a scholar on Russian history, and she became the first women ambassador only in 1996. So I think there has been an intentional efforts from the top leaders to find the right women leaders as diplomats. And that was the time when our former foreign minister, Kang Kyung-hwa, also joined the ministry as Director General. And now in 2020, we have 52.9% of newly incoming diplomats who are women. And at the director level, we have 39% right now. And the Director General level is still under 10%, but I think it is steadily increasing. And this, I think, goes along with the overall gender equality in the Korean society, because when we go back to what is the current status of the economic empowerment for Korean women, we still face only around 52.8% of the female labor market participation. That has not increased that much compared to a decade ago. We still have a wide gender pay gap that is around 32.5% according to the OECD. So I think we really need to push further in terms of the overall society to have women diplomats more influential and more visible. But still at this moment, when the Korean diplomat is more or less interested in a hardcore, realistic politics, even though we have a lot of women diplomats working in a very important positions, they are not exposed. They still remain visible in a lot of areas. So what we really need to do is to show in the foreign ministry that hard politics is not all about diplomacy. There are all kinds of different important areas in diplomacy where we work and what makes the differences in our society, also in the world.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Lee. We still have a small number of women in leadership and managerial positions. I think we have come a long way for the last 10 years, in fact. And I'm glad to have you and Ambassador Kim at those positions, because economic affairs jobs pertaining to economic affairs and climate change used to be men's job. They weren't supposed to be, soft jobs. Women were meant for soft jobs. But you are making progress. You are making inroads to the so-called men's jobs with more power. And as Ambassador Lee said, diplomacy is not all about hard politics, but the reality is such. I think women should also be trained or be taught how to play politics in diplomacy as well. Well, with that, then let's hear about the Indian situation. What is the share of women diplomats in the Indian Ministry of External Affairs? Is it a meaningfully increasing? Is it in a meaningfully increasing trend? And how many women diplomats do you have at the ambassador or director general level and above in the Ministry of External Affairs? I address this question to Ambassador Ranganathan, as you are currently part of that ministry, Ambassador Ranganathan.
Okay. It's a mixed bag, really, in terms of hard data. And I pulled this out from my ministry a few days ago. We currently have about 25% women overall in the Ministry of External Affairs, of which those above the rank of DG, including the women ambassadors, this comes to about 35 all told. And we have 22 women heads of missions and heads of posts, that is ambassadors and consul generals put together. Now, of itself, it's not a small number, but when I compare this against the total, it's not that strong either. We have a total of 160 heads of missions and posts across the world, of which just 22 are women. So that's in percentage terms still modest. Similarly, of the lot of people, as I said, we have about 32 about DG. This is out of a total of about 220. So it's still small. But then when I look at how things are progressing over time, I think at the time when Ambassador Ghanshyam joined the service, there were maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people, 3 women who joined in every year. Since 2011, I'm told by officers handling human resource in my ministry, that we have been having on average between 30 to 45% women joining every year. And that's a very healthy number. So when I look at where we were to where we are today, one, in terms of absolute numbers, right now, probably we are not quite there. We have quite a distance to go. But again, I think, and I'm echoing what DG Lee just mentioned, since the intake is now increasing, the number of women who are joining the foreign service is increasing gradually but steadily. I think we will find over the next few years that there will be more women who are automatically well positioned to take over more of these positions, both in headquarters and overseas. And I think it is noteworthy that while we are still relatively small in number, we kind of make up for that in terms of our punch. Ambassador Ghanshyam has herself been an ambassador to one of the P5 countries, which is obviously one of the most prized positions in the ministry. She has also served as vice minister. I think so far we have had women in each of the P5. We have had women vice foreign ministers. We have had women occupying the post of the spokesperson to the government, in the prime minister's office, in the president's secretariat. So, we've really been, I think we have punched beyond our weight to an extent. And I believe that over the next few years, we will find more and more women are rising to these positions. and are far more visible than they have been so far.
Very good. 22 women ambassadors and consul generals is an envy from our side. Ambassador Lee, do you know how many women ambassadors do we have?
Yes, I don't have the exact figures very recently, but it's less than 10. Recently, it has decreased, so we only have around 2 or 3 ambassadors right now.
Is the foreign minister joining us today? Is he listening to this webinar?
No.
The president should also be listening to this webinar. All right. Okay, let's move on. How can women contribute to diplomacy in the field of economy? I'm addressing this question to Ambassador Ranganathan and Ambassador Lee. You know, how can they contribute to security and strategic thought, especially in connection to your current responsibilities and or previous experiences? I'll invite Ambassador Ranganathan and Ambassador Lee. Then I'll move on to Ambassador Ganashayam and Ambassador Kim. Ambassador Ranganathan?
I wouldn't say, I have a slightly offbeat answer to this question. I would say that women are as capable as men are in handling any aspect of diplomacy that is thrown at them. There have been times in various positions I've held in the past where I've been the sole woman in a room full of men, including many people who are in uniform and, who are discussing hardcore security, border conflict, how do we handle protests along in various communities and so on. And I think once the basic capacity or the basic knowledge which any diplomat has, male or female, I think we become completely gender neutral in that kind of a situation. So I won't say that there is specifically in the area of strategic policy or in the area of economic diplomacy that we bring something additional or more than what the male diplomats bring, apart from what we have already covered in the early part of our session, which is just the capacity to be consensus builders, the capacity to read between the lines, the focus on coming away with win-win solutions. I think if we bring all these facets of women diplomats and bring it in the context of strategic and security issues or economic issues or cultural issues, I think we find that we are more than capable of holding our own.
Ambassador Lee?
Well, in terms of the economic areas, I think there are still a lot of areas where we can improve the women overall. The strength of the women in terms of diplomacy, I think, is what Ambassador Kim already said, the capacity, the capability for empathy, to understand the persons that you talk. Also understanding diversity. We have been minorities, and we know that a diverse society is also a strength. And also we have, I think, a strength in the skill of communications. There are areas where we have strength. And I think these are the areas where we can bring more abundance and more experience in the negotiations, on the tables, and on the projects that we do in developing countries and also in the multilateral fora.
Okay, so Ambassador Ranganathan and Ambassador Lee emphasized that if I re-paraphrase, there's no job reserved for specific gender, for one gender, reserved for one gender, and another jobs for other genders. Well, the bottom line is jobs should be taken on merit basis, right? But if women diplomats are to add women-specific qualities, if I may say, women have a good ability to empathize and good communication skills, and so on and so forth. Can I hear from Ambassador Ganashayam and Ambassador Kim?
Yes, thank you so much. I think I really agree with both Ambassador Ranganathan and DG Lee, who highlighted that there is no job that should be considered as being reserved for any specific gender, and it should be, in fact, merit-based. There's no denying that. I think we all agree on that. I think one of the reasons why the economic diplomacy has not seen so many women participating in it is because economics, finance, business, these have traditionally been seen as male domains. But I think by now, this stereotype has been very comprehensively broken. If we look at, for example, Madame Christine Lagarde, who's the president of the European Bank and was MD of the IMF, finance minister of France. Then if we look at India, for example, we have a woman who is our finance minister, who's handling the economy at this very challenging times. Geeta Gopinathan, the chief economist of the World Bank. I mean, there are so many examples that one can think of when it comes to women in the field of economic negotiations. When I was secretary for West in the ministry, I remember that India's chief negotiator on the broad-based trade and investment agreement with the European Union was a woman. And her counterpart was also a woman. So women can be as capable as anybody else in handling this kind of diplomacy. I think women can help in making the decisions inclusive by bringing in the viewpoints of perspectives of even the disadvantaged, and vulnerable people. I think that is the advantage that a woman can bring. But all in all, as I think Ambassador Ranganathan said, it's something that we should consider simply as both are equally capable, men as well as women. When it comes to strategic thought, I think women's perspective should be considered as an essential part of that thinking. The women's vision, I think a woman's first instinct is to create a peaceful and stable environment for her family, for her children to thrive in. So women are not really inclined to for countries to be at war or for societies to be unstable or not peaceful. They are not likely to be swayed by considerations of ego or visions of grandeur. I think that is the perspective that is very essential in every strategic thinking, because that is the perspective that can take societies forward in a much better way. So often I feel that what is actually the strength of women is seen as women's weakness. But actually, it is really a woman's strength that she focuses on peace rather than a conflict.
Excellent. Ambassador Kim?
Thank you. First of all, I completely agree with what previous speakers said. There is not any issue which is appropriate for a single gender. So I mean, both men and women can deal with any issues in diplomacy. However, still there is a perception that women may want to avoid going to very tough posts. For example, like the LDC countries, Sub-Saharan Africa, or very conflict areas. I was sent to Senegal, LDC in West Africa, And I volunteered actually. It was my, wish to go there. But I was first Korean woman ambassador in sub-Saharan Africa. And many people actually expressed sympathy to me when I was posted there. However, I really enjoyed life there, and I learned a lot, and I achieved a lot, and I also met very nice, good people there. And also I found a lot of potential between Korea and West Africa relationship. So it was so precious experience for me. But what I want to say is, because there is a perception that woman doesn't want to go to hard post. So what I am recommending to particularly women diplomats is just please speak up. Please be bold, and please speak up what you want to do, where you want to go. So if you want to deal with North Korean nuclear issues, if you want to go to conflict areas, if you want to deal with very tough issues, just please speak up. If you do not raise your voice, nobody will listen to. So women should be bold in expressing their wish. That's what I want to say. And also, Dr. Song, I completely agree with your point regarding merit-based position. Position based on merits. But in Asian society, still there is a culture finding, how can I express it in English, but looking for or depending on connections. For example, okay, which high school you have graduated? Yeah, and also, okay, where is your hometown? Yeah, where were you born? In a specific region, province, in this country, that kind of matters. Sometimes that kind of factors sometimes, not every time, but sometimes are considered in decision making, and we must avoid that situation, and we must delete that kind of tradition, I believe. So when when diplomats are standing on equal footing based on his or her merits, I think actually women diplomats will be given more opportunities, will be given, I think they have more potential. And therefore, I think we have to keep working to change culture, to create new tradition.
Well, I agree with you totally, Ambassador Kim. I recall I was asked the question by your former colleagues about what do we do when young women diplomats, young women staff do not want to do the night duties. We cannot enforce them to do it. What do we do? And they were complaining about it. And I hope your ministry has found that a balanced solution during the course. And of course, this you will recall the fundamental causes of the Asian financial crisis that hit hard Korea were included nepotism, favoritism, and corruption. The qualities you mentioned in appointment that's been practiced in not just in the foreign ministry, but in all of the government and in the Korean society is still being practiced. And if I may sum up the points, agreed upon points of the four ambassadors, I would say appointment should be merit-based, but gender should not be the reason for any discrimination. Do you agree? Have I done the good sum up? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Well, what are the major challenges in foreign affairs of Korea and India, in your view? Can I invite Ambassador Ranganathan and Ambassador Kim?
Major challenges in India-ROK relationship. I don't think there are really any challenges. There are a lot of opportunities. There is, it's an incredibly rich relationship. It's a relationship which has, whichever field you touch, I find that there is so much of potential, not only in terms of what we have already achieved, but how much more we can achieve, whether it is in the field of economy, whether it is building on our really rich cultural connections, whether it is in the deepening our strategic and political ties, our defense ties, our people-to-people contacts. How can India help Korea? How can Korea help India? I think these are all areas in which there is a great deal of positive energy. And what has been really the biggest positive development in the past few years has been that the attention of both governments has turned at the same time. I mean, there have been occasions in the past when the Korean government has been looking at India and India has been preoccupied with other issues. There have been times when India has been looking at trying to forge a stronger partnership with Korea, and Korea has been preoccupied with other issues. I think now is a time when actually there is a happy coincidence that India, through its Act East policy, and Korea through its South Korea through its New Southern Policy Plus, have decided to prioritize their relations with each other. And therefore, this is a time when there is incredible potential, and I think we are going to be really just steadily moving up and up and up over the coming times.
Ambassador Kim?
Thank you. I mean, if I just interpret your question, if I interpret in this way, that your question is, what is the major challenge in foreign affairs of Korea, in Korean foreign ministry? If I answer to that question, two things I would like to emphasize. Number one is, actually, this is my question this is the question I'm asking to myself as well. Okay, what is really Ministry of Foreign Affairs value now? Because with the technology development and with the development of expertise, other ministries like Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Culture, they have many international activities, and they are exchanging views and activities with foreign countries. If so, what is foreign ministry's role in this changing world? Because many, I mean, even private sector as well, they are talking to foreign companies directly, and also in that sense, in the past, actually, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the ministry played a key role in international relations. However, now it seems to me that the area is shrinking. But on the other hand, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs must create its own value, what value we are going to provide to the private sector, to other ministries in the government. So a kind of role setting and identity finding, I think that's one of the challenges the Korean Foreign Ministry is facing. The Korean Foreign Ministry, we really want to be closer to Korean people, and we really want to help other ministries to play a role in international forum. And also, we really want to support the private sector to work in a level playing field globally. So what should be MOFA's role? That's one question I'm still asking to myself. And secondly, I'd like to mention that in the past, Ministry of Foreign Affairs was such an attractive working place. But now I think actually the level of attractiveness is decreasing because there are many other so-called good jobs outside of government. And also working in overseas missions, embassies, that is tough, frankly speaking. There are many countries with a lot of difficulties, with a lot of tough environment, and also particularly young diplomats, if they have spouses, they must be, most probably they should be separated. So how to maintain families and being distance from friends and relatives, that's tough. So Ministry of Foreign Affairs is becoming less attractive working place for young people. Maybe it is in line with Korea's development because Seoul is good and Korea is good to live in. Therefore, how can we attract more like young people to Korean Foreign Ministry? That is also one of the challenges we are facing now. Yes. However, I see like Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a key ministry in Korean government, and particularly to the country of Korea, the foreign relations, diplomacy, it's such an important one. Therefore, I'm saying to my direct junior diplomats that you must be very proud of being a part of this organization, because we are really working for our people, for our country, and because we have experienced, we lost our country in the past. Therefore, and also we are still divided. So diplomacy is really important for future reunification, for future like setting, like nation setting in this peninsula. There must be huge role for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to play in the future. So if you are committed to working for this country, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the best place to come. Yeah, so I think the Foreign Ministry must make further efforts to outreach to young people in Korea for mobilizing and for inviting them to work in this organization.
Wow, that was a speech.
Oh, no, because you asked the question exactly what I have asked to myself for long days.
Very good. And I know Ambassador Ranganathan, how hard she has been trying to promote this, cooperation between the India's Act East policy and Korea's New Southern policy, and her efforts are still going on and keep continuing. And I appreciate personally, and on behalf of Korea, I don't know, I'm in the position to represent Korea, but on behalf of Korea, I do appreciate Ambassador Ranganathan's genuine effort. And, I really appreciate Ambassador Kim for your sharing your honest, candid views and thoughts about what is the value of the foreign ministry nowadays. And also, but nonetheless, I still think it's a very attractive place to work for young people. And, some jobs just cannot be monetized. It may not be the best paying jobs. It may not be the safest jobs, but it's a job very, very much worthwhile to do. And I think, and I used to think economy is much more important than security and diplomacy, etc. But as time goes on, nowadays I'm thinking to myself, perhaps diplomacy is more important for our existence, especially for a country and people living in this Korean Peninsula, which has a permanent risk. So I am glad you brought up this issue, and I'm glad you shared your very candid thoughts. Because of the time constraint, let me move on. I'm addressing this question to Ambassador Ganashayam because she has already completed her foreign service. Ambassador, as a young woman, what made you decide to join the foreign service? Do you think you have achieved your goal during your tenure?
Thank you so much. Surprisingly, this is a slightly difficult question to answer. And as I was thinking just now, when I decided to join the foreign service, I had actually never met a diplomat, nor had I ever traveled abroad. So it was all something of my imagination, I suppose, that inspired me. But I think when I was in school, I spent a long time thinking about what I wanted my life to be like. And somehow, through all that churning, this was the answer that presented itself. Now, if I try to figure out, maybe it was because as a child, I was always considered to be very tactful and considered also to be very articulate. In fact, I used to talk so much in class that my class teacher once, in exasperation, she said, you should join a profession where you have to talk and impress people. And when my friends would be upset with me, they would tell me, you are a diplomat, because I would always end up saying the right things and get away with it. Whereas they would have to, sometimes pay the price for their mischief. So I don't know what it was that took me towards the foreign service. But having joined the foreign service, I must say that that was probably one of the smartest things that I've done in my life, because I've been totally satisfied and fulfilled in my career. People often talk of gender bias. Well, there are subtle ways in which women sometimes are so-called, shown their place, because, as has been mentioned by earlier speakers, certain challenging assignments are not given to women. But I must say, I've been privileged in the sense that I was the first woman to serve in Islamabad, and that was even during the Kargil War. Yeah, but while I was in Islamabad, I must also say that initially it was tough going, because my boss even once took me around to show me the dust on the window panes, and would sometimes tell me to consult his wife. And it was actually a bit of agitating from my side that I finally was given some substantive work. Yeah, but having said that, I mean, I have handled some fantastic assignments. I have served in Sub-Saharan Africa. I have been High Commissioner to South Africa. I was in UK at a very interesting and challenging times. I've served in very interesting positions in the ministry. All in all, I must say that, when I retired from service, it was not a feeling of, okay, now I'm fed up and I just want to leave. It was, well, this was wonderful. And if I had to do this for a few more years, it would still be wonderful. And I must say that if I had to choose my career option again, I would make the same choice. So no matter how many wonderful jobs are out there in the market, Ambassador Lee, Ambassador Kim, I would still think that the foreign office and the foreign service for any country, it offers the most wonderful mix of challenges, new experiences, wonderful people that you come across, learning about foreign cultures, different cultures, basically widening one's horizons. I think this is probably the best option still.
Wow, that's quite an experience. So be tactful and be articulate to be a good diplomat. And I actually wanted to ask this question to all the three other ladies, but a good moderator should be a good timekeeper. So I'll move on to our last question, which is, if you were to give a piece of advice or a message to young aspiring women diplomats, what would you be yours? What's your message for them? I'll start with Ambassador Ganashayam, and then Ambassador Kim, and Ambassador Lee, and finally Ambassador Ranganathan.
If I had to give a message, and this is a message that I have given all through my life to my younger women colleagues whenever I had a chance, it is first, work hard, harder than the others. Secondly, never seek to take advantage of your gender. Be a thorough professional, do whatever it is that other people are doing. Because I believe that the performance of a woman, of one woman actually, determines how people view women in general. If there is a bad driver, male bad driver on the road, you just curse the man who is driving so badly. But if it's a bad woman driver, generally people say, oh, women drivers, so what each one of us does actually influences how everyone else gets judged, and therefore women must be exceptional.
Okay, Ambassador Kim.
I always keep saying this word to my the junior colleagues: be yourself. What I mean is, when I joined the ministry early days, I tried hard to be used to the culture created and dominated by men. So at that time, I thought how to adapt myself quickly into the culture, into the existing culture. That is my capability. I thought in that way. However, later I realized that I was wrong. I should be myself, and I should create new culture, new environment. So don't just follow the culture created by others. Create your own culture, be yourself. That's my advice.
Ambassador Lee.
Well, that's very difficult questions. I would say, well, plan in advance, but be lenient and play the long game. That's the first one. Take a long breath. Don't panic or don't fret or don't be disappointed at whatever what happens in your daily lives, but also build your specialty areas where others cannot challenge, so that you will be known or you will be called when the time comes. That's what I would say.
Okay, Ambassador Ranganathan.
Okay, so I get the last word. I think I completely hear what both Ambassador Kim and Ambassadors Gansham and DG Lee have mentioned. And I really get that woman driver bit, because that is something which has been such a bugbear for me throughout my driving career thus far. But in terms of what would I say to young women diplomats who are starting their careers today, I would say, first of all, follow your heart. I would say, second of all, don't be afraid to quote Sheryl Sandberg. Don't be afraid to lean in. I think it is possible, and women have shown that it is possible for us to have it all. We can have a successful, meaningful, rewarding career. We can have a happy, amicable, satisfying home life. We can choose to be whatever we want to be. We can choose to be single. We can choose to be married. We can choose to be mothers. We can choose not to be mothers. We can choose to serve in headquarters. We can choose to serve in missions abroad. So I would say that take to yourself that power to choose. And lastly, I would say support each other, because I have benefited so much from the guidance and from the kind of mentorship from many colleagues in my system, both male and female. I'm not saying that it is only the female officers who have given me the kind of inspiration and the confidence. So I would say that enable our younger colleagues to succeed, and encourage the women colleagues in particular who are grappling with, many of them have young children, many of them have issues at home, enable them to succeed. And I think these would be my basic advice to those who are following behind.
Okay, so the 4 ambassadors, female ambassadors' message to young aspiring women diplomats are: work hard, set a good example, be yourself, plan in advance, be lenient, play a long game, and build your specialty area. Follow your heart. Don't be afraid to lean in. And most importantly, support each other. So, well, thank you very much for your genuine and heartfelt responses and sharing. I thoroughly enjoyed our discussion, and I do hope you all did, and I do hope the audience did as well. And I think we've just made a very good, worthwhile valedictory session. And I thank you all 4 ambassadors for your active and really genuine participation. Ambassador Ranganathan, would you like to say a few words before I conclude this session?
No, I think I've spoken a lot, so I don't really have anything more to say beyond really thanking all of you who have participated, and I've really learned a lot about in particular about the Korean Foreign Office, and I've also in a way understood that even though we may be very different and very different situations, I think the challenges of women diplomats are more or less aligned all across the world. So that's been a learning for me as well in this session. But thank you so much, Dr. Song.
Okay, on this positive note, I'd like to invite Mr. Oh Young-jin, president of the Korea Times, for which I write my regular columns, by the way, to give a few words of conclusion. With his concluding remarks, we will say goodbye to our audience, and I will hand over the microphone and floor to Dr. Sonu Trivedi, who oversees this whole workshop. With that, thank you very much.
Congratulations for the successful conclusion of the workshop. The list of topics covered by second workshop on facets of India-Korea partnership leaves little to chance. The last topic on the list was about women in diplomacy, how appropriate it is. Ambassador Ranganathan, organizer of this workshop, represents all the best there are in a woman diplomat. I need a correction. I should have said it without gender identification. I believe she is the best there can be in a diplomat, man or woman. I wouldn't make such a statement lightly, as shown in the 2 weeks saga. She is a prudent organizer, an ardent activist for deeper understanding between Korea and India, and one who is willing to push the envelope. So being invited by such a person of high esteem to the denouement of the important occasion is an honor to me. That honor comes with a great responsibility, talking to well-informed audience, putting myself under scrutiny, like I am doing now. I don't want to waste your time going over details of the subject well selected and surely delved into properly by experts in this workshop. They know better than I do, for sure. Many of you participants proved to be more knowledgeable than I am about the issues. Still, I wish to add how little it may be to this two-week endeavor by pointing out what is obvious. I want to reiterate the subjects of all sessions, starting with the first session, synergies between Korea's NSP or New Southern Policy and India's AEP or Act Easy Policy. Second session, overcoming COVID-19 pandemic. Number 3, changing socio-economic landscape. Number 4, renewable energy. Number 5, AI policies. Number 6, cooperation in era of unicorns. Number 7, UN peacekeeping experiences. Number 8, cybersecurity challenges. And number 9, women in diplomacy. I'm sure you see what I see. These subjects add up and show that the two countries' relationship has progressed so much as to touch very sensitive areas for their coexistence. In other words, it is a kind of a performance score sheet. It shows the two are trying hard to know more of each other, learn from each other, and realize they are pivotal to each other. They have already passed the stage of partnership and is on the path toward the friendship, or in diplomatic terms, an alliance in the making. We Koreans only have one ally to talk about, United States. India needs Korea, perhaps Korea needs India more. Above all, the two share the same set of values, rule of law, respect of human rights, good neighborly behavior, positive engagement with the world, of course, love, peace. True, there are ups and downs in the upkeep of these values. History hates myopia, so she said the last time when I asked her. These values make them a perfect match in an effort to tame peace-disturbing, rule-defying, neighbor-bullying, rights-abusing forces. It would turn out to be a struggle for survival and future prosperity. United, we stand. It goes without saying that we are complementary to each other in most important areas, although complementarity is still underutilized. Korea needs a market. India has it. Korea needs IT talent. It can give it to her. When India needs skills, Korea can give her them. As shown in this workshop, their potential goes far beyond the rudimentary I have just mentioned. Progress in two countries' cooperation doesn't appear as speedy as people like me or Ambassador Ranganathan may want. That anxiety to get going faster is key driver to hasten full blossoming of India-Korea, Korea-India partnership. I cannot wait to see it. So are you, I'm sure. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oh Young-jin, for summarizing this very important session and this entire workshop, in fact. And let me also, in particular, thank all the women panelists of this very important session, Ambassador Ho Yoon Kim, Ms. Myeon Lee, Ambassador Ruchi Ghanshyam, Ambassador Shri Ranganathan, and Dr. Song for moderating this session so well. Well, friends, finally, with today's session, we come to an end of the 2 weeks online workshop on India and Republic of Korea partnership, in which various distinguished speakers, some best and brightest minds from both countries have reflected upon some finer nuances of various topical issues and the new areas of cooperation between the two countries. Mr. Oh Young-jin has just summarized these themes. I'm not going to repeat them. Well, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me also share that this workshop is a part of the series of India at 75 or Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which the country is celebrating as we have entered the 75th anniversary of India as an independent nation. We at the Embassy of India in Seoul have put together a series of events to mark this joyous occasion, with a special focus on themes of relevance to India and Republic of Korea relationship. Friends, On behalf of the Embassy of India and the Cultural Center, it is an honor and privilege for me to propose a vote of thanks to all those who have been directly or indirectly involved in putting together this online workshop. At the outset, let me formally thank all our valued speakers, beginning from session 1 up till today, and all our partners from India and Republic of Korea for collaborating in this academic exercise. I would like to spell out one by one all our partners. From Republic of Korea, we had institutions like Institute of Foreign Affairs and National Security, the Korean Social Science Research Council, Korea Institute for International Economic Policy, Korea Information Society Development Institute, the Presidential Committee on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the United Nations International Development Organization Investment and Technology Promotion Office, or UNIDO ITPO as it is popularly known as, Korea National Defense University, and the Institute for National Security Strategy, and also our very important partners from India, Research and Information System for Developing Countries, Indian Council for Social Sciences Research, Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation, the Niti Aayog, the Internet and Mobile Association of India, and the United Service Institution of India for joining us in organizing this very important workshop. In fact, all the team members from all our partner institutions have been in touch with us continuously for organizing and facilitating this online workshop in a smooth manner. Well, friends, finally, a special thanks goes to the main pillar of our embassy and the Indian Cultural Center, Ambassador of India, Her Excellency, Shri Ranganathan, for conceptualizing the idea. Thank you, ma'am, for this, and the entire team of Embassy of India and the Cultural Center for implementing it together. I extend my sincere thanks to all my colleagues for the enormous support in putting up this workshop together, and also for all technical and logistic support, along with the valuable contribution by our interpreters, without which this entire exercise would have been meaningless. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to all the live participants for their presence in large numbers in each session and making their critical interventions and comments. I'm sure this academic endeavor, focusing on Facets of India and Republic of Korea partnership, put together by us with the help of experts from both countries, would have been insightful and a learning experience for all of us. Friends, all the recorded lectures from day one are on our social media handles, and you can go back to them for any future reference. And before we end this workshop, my appeal to all the speakers, moderators, and discussions to share the final script of your presentation so that we may compile them together and bring out a volume on India and Republic of Korea partnership, which may be released early next year, maybe, as we enter into the 50th year of diplomatic relations between the two countries. We will also write to you soon, formally, with detailed guidelines and style sheet for final publication of the manuscript. We hope to receive your valuable insights in the written form for this forthcoming volume. Finally, a big thanks once again to all present here in particular, and to the friendly people of Korea in general, who have always been so open and receptive to cultures from all across the world. And my last word, as always, stay tuned to our social media handles for more updates about our future events. Thank you all. Thank you, Kamsahamnida. Thank you.